by ourselves, by the young civilians who were there. Yes, a list was drawn up. But let me tell you what this list contained. This list contained the name of every senior government official. Every senior government official of the Tui party. If I remember well, I think we had the name of Madam Pierre Brown-Boo. We wanted to make sure where they were because we contemplated a counter coup. So we wanted to make sure that these people were in places where they could not effect any change. My father's name was on the list, and I said, but excuse me, what are you going to do with my father? And Brother Tipote jokingly said, but he's a superintendent. And Matthew said, no, woman Fahnbulleh don't pay the price. So I said, Tipote, stop this joke. Remove my... Of course, they say my father. So we laugh about it. This list contained about 64, 65 names. 64, 65 names. I remember they put Dr. Augusto King. And they said, you have to go and talk to King. That he must present himself. I went to King and said, just stay in your house. These people will forget tomorrow. The old man did not show up, never went to prison. The government was constituted. We realized one thing. It was all political opportunism. There we were, young men, without any hold on power, not knowing who these guys were, what their agenda was, they themselves extremely nervous, conscious of the fact that they had taken power, but not understanding what to do with this power. And then there was general anarchy. Soldiers were invading homes, shooting people, robbing, and yes, they executed a few of their colleagues. And sometime between the 21st and the 22nd of April, my source, and as a social scientist, I always dig for facts. My source tells me that a cable was intercepted. The security people had a machine at Duke of Palace Hotel, and all cables that left from the telecommunication and from French cable copies were picked up by this secret communication device at the Duke of Palace Hotel. And I was told that I think on the 23rd on the 22nd or the 23rd, a cable was intercepted by somebody, I think it was George Hendricks or so, asking for SOS. Things are bad. Come and help us. 2 days before, the TRC had heard that Benny Warner, the vice president, was in the Ivory Coast, and that President Boima was sending troops to come and reverse the coup. There was general panic. I learned later on that on the 22nd, the PRC met at the executive mansion. And against the background of this cable that had been intercepted, the rumors of Ivorian troops coming to Liberia, the panic. And they decided that all the people who had gone before the tribunal would be executed. They decided that. If you remember, the tribunal had not issued any verdict. It had not. It had only listened to people. What the PRC was, what the young guys were seeing in the army was that we will execute these people so there can be no reversal. In other words, all of you who are with us, we have now crossed the Rubicon. This is it. We will execute these guys. Know that we are not going back. If you are with us and you don't help us, when the counter-revolution comes, you will die too. And let me say here, in this public manner, within the context of the struggle, where a year and 8 days before we had buried so many of our militants, even if we had been called to a meeting by the PRC, I doubt if anybody would have had the guts or the courage to say don't shoot those people. And let me say that insofar as the executions were carried out, even though we were not consulted, but insofar as we did not resign, we endorse what was happening. And so we take responsibility. And let me say, we have seen the blood and the entrance of our militants a year before. And for many of us who had gone through the literature of violence and consciousness building, we welcome this. Welcome it in the sense that it happened. We must not cry. I hear militants say they cry. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. When you join the military, and you know the military thrives on guns, and the military, in order to constitute its power, will have to institute terror, and you become part of that. Anything the military did while we were there, we take responsibility. As young revolutionaries, we have no regrets for history. Let me say something here. My father was brutalized in this country, held in prison. He died a broken man, beaten on the orders of Mr. Totman by General Casserly. My family was disrupted. Nobody offered me an apology. I realized that was within the context of the revolution. My grandfather was dragged to the streets of Monrovia. Nobody ever apologized to my family. I went to prison at the age of 18. Again at the age of 29. My daughter Miata was born sick because her mother fainted about 3 or 4 times when I was arrested. Nobody. When you get involved in a historical process, you must take the consequences. I believe in my conviction. My role I play in the service of my country was well thought of. From a young age, I realized that I will go down this route. If it means my life, so be it. Nobody reads the classics. Nobody reads the Chinese Revolution, the Cuban Revolution, the Vietnamese Revolution. Nobody reads revolutionary history and says to you, we did not understand. And you ask the question, but these were illiterate soldiers. How could you have supported them? And I say to you, we were students of the Mexican Revolution. We understood the role of Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villas. These were peasants, illiterate men. They carry out a revolution. And who says illiterate people do not feel in the guts the injustice meted out to them? We had an alliance. You can call it an alliance of opportunism, but we were not going to give space to those we had overthrown. So we say here, we were quite aware. Yes, we did complain. We did complain to our colleagues that this was barbarity, just among ourselves. Me, to Brother Sawyer, to Brother Tipote, this cannot be done. But you know, in history, when you fight against an oligarchy, and that oligarchy has been overthrown, the worst thing you can do is to shed crocodile tears, sit and see the reversal of the process. Because in history, those who were once overthrown, when they come back with deadly vengeance. We understood this. So the executions went on, the government went on. We were told by the TRC that they would get to the point where they will relinquish power and go back to the barracks. This is what we have been agitating for. Democratic elections, empowering the people. Now, a lot of things happened during the period 1983 while we're in the government. I'll leave that for the commissioners. I hope they have done the research to ask me those questions. We shall reply. But I'm not in the habit of inflicting my role in history. I'm not. Most often, men and women who inflict the roles in history, invariably they don't play meaningful roles. I leave that for others to say. A lot of things went on. Fast forward to 1983. Announcement comes over the air that Liberia had established diplomatic relations with Israel. I knew nothing of that. My wife comes into the room laughing. So you're going to Israel. Don't bother me. She says, over the air. I said, cut that crap out. She says, over the air. I get out of my bed, turn the radio on. The news headline, Liberia to establish ties with Israel. I dash to the radio station ELBC. I asked the announcer, can I see the press release? He handed it to me. I go to Willie Gibbons, who was Deputy Minister of State. Who authorized this? He said, no. What discussions were carried out? None. How can you resume ties when the OAU has taken a position on this? In solidarity with the Palestinian people, we must sever ties with Israel. Simply because the Arabs are in solidarity with the black liberation fighters in South Africa. Not a single Arab country has diplomatic relations with apartheid South Africa. So, Gibbons, if you people want to convince Doe, convince him that we go back to the OAU and debate this issue. He says, already done. I decided to see Mr. Doe. I said to him, Mr. Head of State, this is wrong. I am the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I should have been consulted. He said the Americans told me to do it, and so I did it. I said, is that so? I will find out. I sent for the American Ambassador William Swing. Excuse me, sir. We had to fight to get recognized by Africa in the international community after the coup. Did you impress on Head of State Doe to resume ties with Israel? The American Ambassador said, Mr. Minister, I did not. It is not true. I said, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I went before the council to explain. Doe had gone to Germany. And there you had the advisors, by Bala, Tamakai, Jangabai, Kolu Pine, and others. Moses Dupu. I said, what you guys have done is wrong. You should have consulted me. They said, we took the decision. I said, okay then. Find yourself a new foreign minister. They said, wait for the head of state to come. I said, I certainly will. Mr. Doe got back. I went up to him. I said to him, I don't support this policy. I think you're wrong. It should have been discussed. You listen to the pros and cons. Mr. Head of State, I've done my service. You can find yourself a new foreign minister. We parted company. And so after I left the PRC, I was still a major in the army, and so I couldn't leave the country. I went to Henry Duba, who was chief of staff. Can you give me clearance? He said, I will work on something, because he was married to Brother Drew Mason's sister. He talked to them. They said they were waiting. It was 1983, July the 4th, that I left the mansion. I left the foreign ministry. And so, while waiting for my clearance to travel, I got a call from the director of the NSA, Sylvester Moses, who was my junior at Frobe College. And he said, in quote, I'm sending a flower for you. About 3 a.m. that morning, one of his agents came, a guy called Shafakew, came to see me. He said to me, Sylvester Moses wants me to ask you a question. Have you been listening to the radio of late? I said, yes. Did you hear those say that people are engaging in human sacrifice, ritualistic killings for power? And if anybody is found, the person is going to be executed. I said, yes, what has that got to do with me? I don't believe in these backward practices. I don't. So he said, no. They are orchestrating something. They're going to kill somebody and drop the body in your yard. They will get a few people to go on the witness stand and testify that you sent them. Boima, they will execute you. Sylvester wants you to leave this place. I say, you cannot be serious. Now, for me, it's one thing to go down fighting, it's another thing to die, and Liberian people feeling that you are a boyo man, a backward, who believes in this kind of nonsense. So I said, okay. The next morning I went to Dubai. I said, I have to go, man. I told my wife, make way and take the children out of here. It's getting very dangerous. We took the children. I went to the Guinean ambassador and said, my wife is a foreigner. If anything should happen to me, please rescue her and take her to Sierra Leone. I then went to the Sierra Leone ambassador, Philip Fahnbulleh. My wife is your citizen. Anything should happen to me, please take her out of the country. My children are gone. Dubai said to me, I will help you. 24 hours later, the Egyptian ambassador came to see me. He said, I got a message for you. My government has said to me, I must promise you protection. I must take you into the embassy. I said, Mr. Ambassador, I cannot go and hide in the Egyptian embassy. He said, Samuel Doe has sent a delegation to Israel to ask the Israelis whether they have any information on your dealing with the Libyans. We don't know what the Israelis will tell them, but we think you are in danger. I say, I will wait. I said, who are these people? He said, Grady Allison, Patrick Minical, Henry Duba. Once he said Henry Duba, I said, okay, it's no problem. I know Duba will probably be a decent man, be an honest man. They went to Israel and came back. And the Israelis told them, but no, we have nothing on this young man. And the Israelis asked them, was not this the young man who in Tripoli led the walk out of the African group when Gaddafi insisted that Gukuni Wadai take the seat of the Chadian government rather than Hussein Habri? Wasn't this the young man who led the so-called moderate countries out? Anybody dealing with the Libyans will not do that. Though I had no alternative, I tried to go. They stopped me at the airport. I came back. I went to see Duba. He said I would talk to him. Within a couple of days, I was called and given my passport. The reason they said I was using a diplomatic passport at first, which I was entitled to as a former foreign minister. I took an ordinary passport, got to the airport. When I reached the airport, there was a soldier standing up. He saluted and said, good luck, sir, God go with you. I realized there was something. I jumped on the plane and I left. 1983. I joined my family. Tried to find a job in Paris. Mr. Doe heard I was in Paris. He sent his foreign minister, Ernest Eastman, to UNESCO and said that the Liberian government will frown on Fahnbulleh being employed. That's 84. My father suffered a stroke, seriously ill. And I said, I'll go to Monrovia to see my dad. I got here to Monrovia, 1984. Politics was hot in the air, the temple. Brother Sawyer had announced that he was going to form a political party. He was arrested subsequently. There was a demonstration at the University of Liberia. And while driving before the university, I was stopped. The soldiers, I still got a knot on my head when they hit me with the gun, tore my shirt off my body, took my glasses, and I heard one of the soldiers said, Fahnbulleh, he's been against us, so we'll see. And luckily for me, Harrison Pennell, of all persons, said, no, but you can't do nothing to Fahnbulleh. He and Jeffrey Batu were standing up. Said, Fahnbulleh ain't make no trouble, lead man. I left Liberia, went back to Paris. Now, we come to what you and everybody have been waiting to hear. 1985. And for the first time, I revealed certain things to you people. For the very first time. Late 1984, I'm at home in Paris. My phone rang. I pick it up. There's a man called Eric Scott. Eric Scott. But Eric Scott was executed across the bridge at the onset of the war. But Eric Scott says to me, General Kuyampa wants to talk to you. He's He's here in America. He's asked about you. He wants to talk to you. Before then, I'd heard about the Nimba Ray. I was out of the country since September, since 82, came back briefly. Since 83, came back briefly 84. He wants to talk to you. I said, what is the mission? What is the purpose of this? He said, I think you need to come here and talk to the general. I flew from Paris, went to Washington, D.C. Harry Scott and General Kuyampa picked me up. And Kuyampa said, I'm in school. The situation in Liberia is deteriorating. I escaped after the Nimba raid. I went to Nimba after I left the barracks, and those sent for me to be arrested. He sent General Say, who I think was superintendent, and I didn't know who was coming, and I opened fire, and we killed some of those people. But I managed to escape. But we need to get back to Liberia. The elections are coming. This was yes. The elections are coming. Late 84. General Kuyampa, Harry Scott, and myself, and I said, but just hold on. General, you have left the army. There's nothing you can do. You've been away. But let me propose something here. What happens if we can convince all the political parties to come together? We convince them not to put up a single candidate. All the political parties will come. Doe has said he's going to run. He's an army man. He has the army behind him. But we can split the army by the political party having you as a single candidate. I say, imagine what it would be. If you were to come to Sierra Leone, announce in Sierra Leone that you are the candidate of the combined political parties, and you're going to fly in Liberia, and you will contest the election against Samuel Doe. I say, even if you don't want the power, you can rule, take a suitable vice president, rule for a year, go back to school, turn over power. General Kuyampa said, that's a good idea. I say, I can sell this. I can sell this to our friends in Sierra Leone. Money should be no problem because Doe must go. Doe does not want a free and fair elections. I say, but you are the only man at this time who can create the conditions for pressure to be mounted on Doe to lead if you were to beat him in an election. The international community, the Americans, with whom you had very good relations, they will probably come to your help. It was agreed then by General Kuyampa, by Harry Scott, that this would be a very, very good political move to come and contest the elections in 1985 against Samuel Doe. Before I left, I remember the call came. They said, Charles Taylor wants to talk to you. I said, where is he? He's in prison. And Taylor said, HB, can you please testify at my trial? I said, Charlie, I know nothing about your trial. I've heard that you and Doe fell out, some money business. I cannot come and perjure myself. What do I know about what happened? He said, well, before you leave, just come and say, this whole thing is political. I said, Taylor, I'm not sure. I cannot do that. I cannot. With that, I left Washington, D.C. Went back to Paris. All I know, we're going to get to the political parties, each and every one of them, to convince the candidates to all step down. For General Thomas Kuyampa to become the standard bearer of a united front. I even propose it should be the Alliance of Democratic Forces, something like that. The Alliance of Democratic Forces. So, I went back. It must have been in April or May of 1985, I think, or before that. I received a call from a colleague of Kuyampa in the United States of America. He said to me, HB, can you come down to Freetown? I'm coming with the general. I said, but we have not concluded anything. We have not concluded anything. We're talking to our people within the country. He said, no, plans have changed. I said, I beg your pardon? He said, yes. And this man will come here and he will explain himself. He said, things have changed. We have been talking to the Americans, he said, and to the Israelis, and they have given the general the full backing to go and remove the regime so that democratic elections can take place.